Okay, Business 459, social media, marketing projects. I'm going to do a recap on our lecture on SEO. You asked for it, and I basically pulled together data from several different sources so that we would have really a comprehensive review on SEO and a little bit more. So this way you will have this as an archive to revisit, since it is it's not a complicated, but it can be complicated. And the concepts that we have discussed in SEO will be applicable to social media as well. So I want to start with a story in terms of last weekend. I was with my good friend Brent Keast, who is a movie buff, and we were talking about motorcycles because John Munch, who owns Le Cuvier, buzzed me on his Ducati. And then we talked about how fast motorcycles go, and we were talking about, Bonneville, which is where land speed records get set. And out of blue, I remember seeing a movie. I think it was with some guy. He's Silence of the Lambs, and so we started Googling, and it took us about 5 different Google terms, from motorcycles to movies to speed record, and all of a sudden an Indian. I remember Indian because it was an Indian motorcycle that was there. So let's strap in for a fast and furious review. Okay, I've done this in 40 minutes, so let's see if we can do that in that time. So this is our journey today. Okay, we got 5 key areas, so I'm not going to belabor. Let's talk about understanding search and SEO. So this is the definition for SEM, which gets confused with SEO. Search engine marketing. Really, the big difference here is that SEM is much more the art and side of the marketer to get to the computer and search engines and your customers to locate, understand, engage your business. Basically, it's including SEO, but also gets into paid strategies such as Google AdWords as well as online ads. Whereas SEO is really the art and science of helping a computer understand the business all about. It's more organic. It's how you design your website, web page, conversations you have, the information you put out there, in terms of the type of content that's there, in terms of that'll be relevant, that'll be recent, that'll be dynamic, because the web is looking for, it changes both in terms of content, but image search, local search, video search, academic search, etc. That's there. So that's the difference between two. This is more organic and it's non-paid, and this is going to be a part of SEM. So the key to understanding organic SEO, content and links, and you will hear this time and again. All right, you see the quill, and this is about creating content, because content is king. It has to be quality, quantity, recent, and relevant. It's not paid for, so think about it as like PR. In place of an article by a writer, you find as being much more credible than placement of an ad. And you have to understand that you have to be constantly updating and changing it, and ideally on a weekly basis and at the same time of week. And now you need to understand that we have 2 audiences to address. You have the searcher, the human. Okay, we're all going to pay the bills at the end of the day. Okay, and we are most important. But we need to understand there's a machine involved. Okay, and that's constantly changing, even though it's predictable. And it's very, very important. And part of our strategy, you need to understand, how do we work with the machine? So to take this a little bit deeper, we need to understand people search using keywords. So one of the themes you'll hear is we need to create our content with our customers in mind, the words that they're using and the volume of the search. And you have to keep in mind also how search engines work, which they optimize in terms of they have algorithms or the math. Okay, and what they look at your site is about content. It's all encoding. And also what's important is the inbound links, which is sort of, we'll talk about a little bit, or having referrals or people who cite you. Also is social media And then also is we talk about the quality of your site that we can optimize. Another topic for later on. First, let's talk about human search. Human search is really personalized about quality. So remember, if I search off my machine here in Paso Robles, and then I go to one of your machines down in San Luis Obispo, I can put the same search terms and I'm going to get different results because those results are based on where my machine and the IP and the location and my history of queries and my search history and my Google settings. Also, as we need to keep in mind, it's not about just rankings, it's about the conversations. And at the end of the day, we want the right traffic. And as we talked about, the right traffic is the customers who are going to enter the funnel who have true interest. And tying into this is the buying cycle. And then we've talked about the customer, basically the customer journey, as we see here on the left-hand side. The search and buying cycle is not linear. And you can say, I have a problem, and where do I go? Okay, and how do I feel about this? And do I, what? We've talked about this cycle, but you can tie it into the SEO cycle from the billions of searches that, from the keywords that you're tying in and that your customers are typing in, and the index content down to your search engine results page, and then ultimately driving that down to the web visits and the conversations, because it's these conversations and the visits to your web that will translate to business. Well, what's very important is what we call search intent, or we call Hummingbird, okay, which was the first algorithm change that involved artificial intelligence, and it looked at search intent, which is your intent is you use certain words, but you may have synonyms that are there. And, when you throw out there certain words, you might get, and you probably see, it's like, dang, I put in the 3 words and I get things that are just totally unrelated. Because Google's trying to figure out the intent. So they show various results on page 1. And it may satisfy many types of queries with many type of content. So it's a broad brush. So you have to be more specific. So when you do searches, there's like 3 things you have to think about. And your customers may be navigational in terms of they're thinking about more on the brand. Okay? Facebook, Google. Then some of it, which is very common, which is informational, which is they have specific questions. How to install a new faucet, means going to eHow, best rated kitchen faucets, best systems for DIY website design, okay? And then there's, hey, I'm ready to do business, which is transactional, which is I'm looking at a specific product, I'm looking at details around that product, and I am looking to buy that product. So those are some examples on the bottom that are there. And what Google's goal and search engine goal, and it's not just Google, but Bing, is deliver a positive experience. Most current content, most relevant content in the website, fast, responsive, clear, focused, and to get authority from, authoritative support. And it means, if other quality sites are creating links, that is a bonus, especially with influencers. Because the bottom line is that Google wants you to have a great experience. Okay? Why? Remember, they're a two-sided model. And if you as a user is having a great experience, that means you're coming back. That means that then they can charge what they charge for AdWords. And that's how they make money, because you click through. So the search engine role basically is to answer your query. And most of the traffic is going to come from organic search results. And that links will be key, and that when you're putting your content up, it's going to be indexed, okay? And we'll talk about keywords a little later on, but this is why keywords are so important. So, something to think about with search engines and their algorithms. Algorithms are just you've heard this, wow, what a complex word. It's a complex computer program. But there are certain filters that are in there now, okay? We talked about Hummingbird, which touches on search intent. But if you want local search, you have Pigeon. If you want quality of links or links, you have Penguin. And then thin content, which means it's sorting out for stuff that's just very superficial, less than 300 words, less than 500 words, it's Panda. And this gives you an example of a SERP, or a search engine results page. So you understand what SERP is. It's that output when you do your search, okay? And you get, and some insights on the SERP is that, and we'll go into more detail, is that you will get stuff that will have both paid up on the top, and then you'll have the organic as you follow the paid or ads. But what you search for is ultimately is your ranking to be on page 1 and to be as high up as you possibly can. And that's why organic search is so, and SEO is so critical. So there you go. Here's some results. And what you find usually up front is what has been what we call part of SEM is the paid search. Okay? People have paid for that position. People have paid for being, having like a map that is there. But as you go down here, you'll start seeing more realistic items that are more specific to your organic search. Okay? So, with that said, as we look at the search, what we find is that we have to look at the individual result. And in each individual result, there is a title, which is very critical because you tie in your keyword. And then there's the meta description, which is sort of like a mini ad. And it sort of gives you, and you program it in, is sort of understand a little description that sort of builds that advertising or what that website is about. And when you click their website, you go, oh my God, where is this? Well, it's in the meta data, okay? And you have the opportunity to program that metadata. If not, Google will grab the default data that is there from default settings of the website SEO plugins. And I put on the bottom here just an example with WordPress in terms of how you would program that in. So the big question is, how do we get to page 1? We need to use or guess at by using logic of what is being grabbed by Google or Bing. Okay? But let me just put a perspective on it. Google is ahead of the game. It's constantly changing the algorithm all the time. So no one anyway says you guarantee page 1 SERP, beware. So just keep that in mind. So you have to be constantly learning. You have to constantly be changing your content. You constantly have to be playing by these rules, which are more what we call white hat rules versus black hat rules. So let's talk about content, because this is the secret sauce, folks. All right, content, as we see with the pencil shaving, and also links. Okay, these are 2 key things. And with content, what I will throw in there is keywords. Okay, if you have links without content, you have a red flag. And if you want great content that credible sources want to link to, that is going to be very key. So you need to be able to talk and provide information that is valued by your target audience. So why is content critical? And what is it? Well, content can be text, but it can be audio, video, images. And keywords are very key, which we'll talk a little later on. It's quality, it's unique, and there are some guidelines that are there for Google search, which we'll talk a little later on as well. But content really will be, and the best way to put it is, your website is an antenna, okay? The more content that is there, the larger ability to broadcast a clear signal. And the stronger the signal, the more people will tune in. And as David Merriman Scott, who is an author and really a social media thought leader, points out, is that it is important to understand the ways that your buyers speak. Okay, I'm going to underline this. That the ways your buyers speak and the real words and phrases they use. This is not important in terms of building a positive online relationship, but also planning effective SEO marketing strategies. So speak in the language that your customers want. Talk about the topics that they're interested in. So guidelines in the green. Valuable, relevant, timely. Keywords, content calendar. Okay, here's an example. And tie it to the funnel. Realize it may vary with audience and reach all the stages of the funnel. And here we have the funnel on the right-hand side. So when we think about content, multiple types. Subject matter, and types, as we talked about, can vary. Okay, it's not just text, but you can have images, video, podcasts. And we're seeing the video and the images becoming more relevant in these days. And levels of interest. For those who don't know you, those who are in the shopping mode and comparing, and those who are, so we're talking about here, back to the funnel. Those who don't know you are comparing, and ultimately who are buying. And your ideas can be self-generated or user-generated. So here's a few examples of self-generated: how-tos, original research, breaking news, unique perspective, interviews with thought leaders, a unique product or service, passion, which can be stories. User-generated ends up being that you link from your social network. Okay? You ask industry experts to write guest blogs. Okay? And reviewers or ratings, YouTube, giveaways, and use and forum, which Microsoft uses quite a bit, believe it or not. Okay? Quora is another example that we talked about in the lecture. So great content is engaging, original, it's appropriate to the audience. So we talked about closets, and some of the content that they have on their website may not be appropriate for the millennial audience, and it tells a story. And you want to create content with your business objectives in mind. That is, what is the CTA? Is it above the fold? And remember, user scan content, and you got to keep this in mind in terms of the breaks, images, video, bolded text can help draw in the eye. Okay? Realize that individuals scan in threes and that black and blue, and that's why you have black and blue in your results, because that contrast helps you in terms of, and it helps draw in the eye and be able to know your primary data and your title versus your metadata. And then there's a green for your link. So building on content is the infamous keywords, okay? So what is a keyword? A keyword is a word or string of words a human puts into the search engine. That's what we type in, okay? It could be one or more words, okay? But it's something you, in designing your website, need to think about, okay? You need to be thinking about what your customers are putting in, all right? And this is going to be critical to your pay-per-click, okay? Because you want to be speaking the language. And there are keywords that are very generic to keywords that you have that are very, very specific, which we call the long tail. Keyword types can be explicit. They can be symptomatic, as we see in terms of noise and pipes, problem, placing the pipes, and then actually down to part number. As we said, we could have broad-based keywords that could be very generic to versus long tail, which are very much more descriptive, which you can own space. And when you build your keywords, you may have what we call an ad category or ad base, which would maybe cake, and then we go, okay, birthday cake, and then the birthday cake with chocolate carrot, and you can even go down one or more levels, frosting and filling and stuff like that, if you'd like to do that. But you can do that with different categories of cake. So you can be specific. Okay, and what's so funny is it actually follows what we call Boolean logic that we find in different search databases. Just that Google doesn't use and. Okay, they just type in the different terms that are there. But this is something that you need to think about as you have your descriptors in your content that's there, and that you are able to use it in multiple places on different pages. And you need to think about your keywords and the buying cycle, because based on AIDA, and this is a variant of it, is that sometimes it's just informational, Sometimes we're learning, and we're shopping, okay, where we're looking at features because we've moved from benefits to features to where we buy. So we need to keep in mind in terms of where the customer is in their journey. Now you look at this ugly spreadsheet, but the point is that you need to have a strategy. And so I pulled this actually from a client that I worked with in Santiago, Chile. And what we did was we broke down our keywords based and tied it to strategy of audience, objective, our CTA, and our copy ideas. But our keywords, as you can see, are built off our ad groups. Okay, as you can see there, and you can expand those things out. So as I talked previously, this is how you build your keyword strings, and that you look at and you go out, and when you're bidding and you're looking for what you can own, okay, and what space you're trying to think about, well, how is my customer going to be searching for me? Okay, in our case, we had a vision screener for children, and we could go child eyesight problems. I don't think most people think, but lazy eye and cross eye, are critical, or poor, or double vision, or blurred. Those are things, or nearsighted. Those become things that are more, or children performance in sports, performance, or children performance in school. A lot of that is linked to symptomatology of that poor child vision in children. And why AdWords are important is it helps contribute very much in terms of your quality score. And quality score is one of the pieces that are used to calculate your ad rank. And also, if you flip around that equation, will allow you, from your ad rank that you have here, to determine your price when you're bidding for. So this gets to your SEM. So folks ask about Google AdWords. So when you go out looking for AdWords and you're paying for AdWords, if you've done your homework in terms of SEO, in terms of keyword strings and content, and dynamically changing, your quality score is better. And when your quality score you can rank higher. When you do that, then what happens is your cost, or your price per click through, is going to be then calculated on the ad rank of the person below you, your quality score, and then just add a penny to that. And your keywords need to be clear. They need to be specific. They need to have clarification. When you print it out, you need to be able to apply a scheme and a markup to identify where you're at and see how many times mentioned. And sometimes you have to sit back and go, am I being clear? Okay, because you need to understand semantic SEO. Deals with ambiguity. And I'll use the example of the Jaguar, okay, where you may have more meaning in two words that you use in content. So Jaguar, we talked in class. Cat, car, football team. If you're in Jacksonville, it's the football team. Who cares about the car? Okay? And you want to optimize the true intent of your users, not just in sense. So that means you have to think about themes, supporting themes, and additional topics to really get it sort of drilled, fleshed out. So here's some elements of keyword research that you need to think about. Okay? I would start with looking at similar sites. So look at your competition. I would observe customer search behaviors. I would then use that keyword planner that we see with the Google AdWords. And I'd look at the data that Google has in terms of trend analysis, and then I'd start mapping that buying stage. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail in just a few. But here's AdWords, okay? You can get Google AdWords. Here's the link, okay? It brings you here. You create an account. You go to the keyword planner. And what you're trying to do here is that Google can tell you what AdWords are used on another site. And this is a great place to start. The key is here, find good quality sites to review. And if you're doing that, then what you can do is you can get some good data. So in the keyword planner, you can get additional ideas, look for search volume and competitiveness, and you can even filter to geographic area. So if you want to stay in California, or if you're looking at marketing in New York City, you can be able to filter accordingly. And then you look at trends. which is interest over time, seasonal trends, okay, coming to Valentine's Day, flowers and chocolate, okay, cards. And then look at potential long and short-term benefits that are there. So, wonderful tool. Now, question is, what makes for great keywords? Relevance, purchase intent, strong revenue potential, search volume, and low competition. Okay? So, that's why I say check the Google keyword tool, look at the number of results, look at the top 3 search results that are there. Okay? And you need to think about the architecture of your site. A lot of folks don't think. I get Wix or something like that. No. You need to get and develop a good site. WordPress is a good example. And you're building a building here. Okay? It's an investment. And you have to think about in terms of the columns that support a building and the foundation. It's about internal linking and content. Each page has one keyword. Each page is supported by multiple pages that support the keyword. And as you go deeper into the buying cycle, okay, you have greater content and you have more keywords that are relevant to that point in the buying cycle. So here we go. Build your keyword list. So here's just a quick 5-step to keyword research. Create the seed list, do some research, eliminate those that don't apply, categorize, and identify targets that you can sort through. So here's some recommendations on a seed list. This is most important. What does the audience use? So look through these sources. Review current data. Okay, and that's your analytics, including your AdWords and Google Search Console. Look at autocomplete. What is Google trending? Look at Google related to in terms of popular terms. And then competition. SEMrush and SpyFu are very good examples there. And then you have to refine based on category and audience, level of interest and intent, and then look at what you're ideally looking for: high traffic, low competition, which we call the sweet spot. And then once you create the keywords groups, and that will help guide the content creation. So you have keywords and they'll help drive your content creation website structure. We talked about the architecture, content, and then what you want to do is focus on a few themes and then search for those terms and refine it further. So it's an ongoing process that's there. But if you do this, you'll be ahead of the game because most folks do not do that. So the second piece, so we had the content and the keywords, and the keywords really are integral to the content. And then we get to the links. So links are about social networking. So what people say about you is more important than what you say about yourself. Getting content hyperlinked is like popular content. If you want to get cited, we do this in the publication world. The more you're cited, the more important the work you have, because people have interest and it means relevance. And interesting content naturally attracts links. It's sort of like PR amplification. Okay? Get your content in front of your target market. And you're looking for quality, okay, versus quantity. And what you want are influencers or authority sites because you get better rank. So influencers we talked about in class. So think about in your domain and who the influencers are. In wine, it's Robert Parker. Okay, and there's a few other folks. But there are certain influencers, and you want to make sure that they're picking up on your content that is there. Because if they're picking up on your content, then what happens is that they have greater authority, and people will click through and go check out what you're saying as well. They give you credibility. All right, these are 2 tools: Google PageRank, and then you can do SEMrush as well in terms of being able to check your PageRank. But you can evaluate your links in the pages and that of your competitors as well. All right, we're coming down the line to optimization. So let's talk about our website, because that is a very important thing, and we have to think about some of the content that we also put up on that website. So optimizing. So as you can see here, we have 8 items that we need to think about. And we've talked about title headings, meta description, interlinking, content, your sitemap, which is your architecture, and your images. You want good quality images, but irrelevant images, and Google authorship markup. Okay? And technical optimization is what, as we talked about those elements in the previous slide, what the search engine sees on your site. And so you want to make sure that the architecture is set up in such a way to increase the organic search visibility, and keywords to signify where you should rank. And so one of the things I might even suggest is this Google SEO starter guide that I have here, and you can link to here. But last but not least, what's very important is speed. And we all know that. If you have a website that just takes forever, for instance, the company I work with, Santiago, it just took forever to load. And we know we're impatient. So guess what? If you take too long to load, then guess what? People move on. So speed is, you have a need for speed. Okay? So you need to make sure that the design of your website and the relevance of your keywords are very, very, very relevant. And I am not going to go through all the details on the technical checklist, but these are things you need to think about in terms of the architecture of your website. Some things that I do note that do come up are 404 page errors, broken links. We had a team that was working with a winery, had broken links. Okay, when we mobile responsive, very, very important. Your URLs are clean as well. And you want to make sure the metadata is there. You want to optimize this data here, which is really your content speed. And then your sitemap, which is, again, gets back to your architecture as well. And then I think I have also page speed. Okay, so that gives you a few things that just sort of jump out there. And we talked about multiple platforms, especially you need to be optimized for the phone. Okay? This thing we use so much, and if your website is not, and it just defaults back to what would be for a computer, you're going to be killed. Okay? So think about it. People are using and doing online shopping via the smartphone, okay, and via the tablet as well. And you need to be natural, because you have firms out there, we call them black or gray hat, and what they do is they try to game the system. They try to stuff keywords. They try things that are not natural. And those keywords appear in list or group, and they'll do other things to manipulate the code. Okay? The bottom line is you want to optimize your content so you have a purposeful use of keywords. Remember, human first, bot second. No, bots can't do it. No way, Jose, as we know from here. Okay? Anyway, on to some other tips that are there. Rule of thumb. All right? We know that if you have a word on a page, it appears once, it's a word on a page. If you have it twice, it's a mention. 3 times, it is a keyword. So repetition is very key in terms of particular words that are there. And there are some best practices to keep in mind relative to SEO to help optimize your site. That means each web page and blog post, tying in keywords, making sure your content is relevant, it's not overdone. Make sure you have 1 keyword per page and post at minimum. And make sure you do research. And don't default to meta, and fill your meta descriptions, and make sure the architecture in terms of the internal links do support the SEO architecture. All right, we're in the final push, getting it done. Okay, I want to talk about practical things. All right, so the hardest part is actually creating the quality content and having a publishing set. Everybody's busy, but realistically, think of it as an investment, and it means that you have to have discipline. You want to run a marathon, you're up at 5:30 every morning, you're running 7 to 10 miles, etc. Okay? It just takes discipline. The same habit is important to writing and publishing, especially if you want to create great content. And once you get into it, and as a writer I do that as well, is once you're in a regular groove, it's second nature. But it takes work. Okay, there are tools. Here are some inspirational tools that I've listed out here. I do like YouTube personally, and I like TED. It's there, but there are some other tools that I would point out that you might want to explore. There are some functional tools. Okay, we talked about AdWords. There's some other Google tools, analytics, for instance, and WordPress has SEO by Yoast, which I think is important as well. And then there's other paid tools such as you have SEO ranking tools, Majestic SEO, and content optimization tool by Scribe. So these are not as a promotion, but just some examples that are there that are functional to help your SEO really work better and your website work better versus inspirational, which give you ideas for content. And for a sustainable writing tip, you got to be consistent and relevant in your blogging. That helps you grow your antenna and broadcast a clear signal. So, get clear on how you're going to add value. Participate in some sites, read. As David Merriman Scott says, go to relevant sites, see what the conversation is, see what the feedback is. Maybe start a little bit, get your tone, get clear how you're going to add value to that discussion. Okay, sort of like entering a freeway or entering in a conversation at a party. You want to make sure that it's a natural entry and that you can be able to participate in that conversation versus disrupting it. You will regularly troll for ideas and organize those ideas for easy retrieval. And then establish a consistent publishing style. And then it gets to training your brain and just doing it. I hate to say it, but sometimes you just have to crank out 500 to 750 words. I do it. I put myself on a schedule when I write professionally. A minimum of 500 out to 1,000 words. And it's just get the copy out and then I clean it up. Okay? Get your thoughts together. Okay? And then come back and clean it up. And if you are one that is like, just typing it up or writing it physically, it just doesn't work, dictate it. Use an Olympus recorder or DAT recorder. Or, if you have a podcast or if you have a video like we have here, we can take this and upload it to a site like rev.com, costs us $1 a minute, and guess what? We can have a transcript. We can go back, we can edit it, or have an editor go through, you have somebody put it in the same voice, and guess what? Now you have content that can be used in multiple different ways. We can use that content from a podcast or a video that can be now used in a blog or multiple blogs that could be used then in terms of microblogs or Twitter feeds, etc. You can use your video shots that could be used both in Twitter or Instagram or in Pinterest as well. So this is a way that you can get more out of your just from one individual activity. So as my dad used to say, don't work hard, but work smart. And unfortunately, I do apologize for my printer. It has a mind of its own, and every once in a while it wakes up in the middle of my presentations. So here, last but not least, is a template for writing SEO. I believe in structure. So focus keyword before writing. So think about those keywords as you're writing. Think about your title tab, because that's going to come up, and you want your keywords to be up in front of your title tab, the first few words in the title tag. Think about your meta description, as we talked about, that code that you can put in WordPress and or in other programming that you would do. And then even your URL should be relevant. Okay, and that's where your blog could be, or that's why you see some sort of subsites that are created, or you have individual sites that are totally irrelevant, but they have the URL that's relevant to the keyword, so it gets picked up. So I think we're at the end here. So I'm going to wrap this thing up. And the best way to wrap it up is in a graphic dynamic. It all starts with the customer. Okay? The words and the dialogue and their needs. And your content needs to be relevant and recent and it really in the words of your customer. That means that you have to think about the keywords and the keyword strings that you're going to have. They're going to roll up in your content. They're going to be in the language of customer. And if you're doing that, what you're thinking about as well, again, you're not pushing a product, but you're thinking about how I'm contributing to the conversation. I'm offering good information. And if I'm authoritative, case example, if I, with Eldora, am a authority relative to chocolate and how chocolate's used and how it's made and how it's used in culture, I become a keyword, what I call a thought leader, then people are going to link to my site. They're going to link to my blog. Okay? And then there's the what I call architectural issues that are within your website. Make sure it functions well, both in terms of your content, but also in terms of your site structure. You don't want slow sites, okay, as well as in terms of your content. And then you've got to measure it. Okay, you've got to see what the response is. And then we use the term hack, but basically is you've got to monitor it. You've got to see what's happening. And if not, you have to be able to run new experiments so you can improve. So I'll wrap this up with the governor, okay, or the ex-governor. But I think that Arnie, who has been an individual who has been able to seize opportunity and challenges and change himself, from bodybuilder to actor to governor, back to actor, to be thought leader in different spaces. I think the point here is that SEO is dynamic, and that every decision you make takes you a step closer or a step further away from your goal. Okay, so you need to think about that. And either you are growing or you are regressing, but nothing stands still. So keep in mind, you either sit and get run over, or you move forward and you change and you get ahead of the pack. So I leave you with that thought as I talk about in terms of closing with singular thought, because that's what it's all about in this game. Either you are dynamic and changing and improving and you're making it in your content as an investment, or someone else is. And there's a great book, I think it was Ken Blanchard from San Diego State, talk about Who Moved My Cheese. And you don't want someone eating your cheese. Okay? I know it's a little corny, but anyway, gets the same point across. Hopefully this has been a very helpful lecture. I know I learned a lot in terms of doing this. I think it'll help you with working with your clients. I look forward to seeing you in class. And for those who did not do the full class or miss class, I do expect that you will review this and you'll send me a one-page write-up in terms of key learnings and how it applies to your client engagement. Okay, have a great evening. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.